telling me these things, and I said, "Did you do that?" And she said, "Yes, yes." And I said, "Well, you don't act like it will sound like it." You are amazing.
His wife did.
Okay.
Her dad is a real close.
I'll try to look at it. Apparently not.
I'm giving her deadlines.
I asked his son the other day, what are his plans?
Right to go. She just made it
Yeah, Monty the Cripple Hooker.
It's just right here. I know.
Oh my gosh, finally. Hi.
Y'all had a lovely trip.
I finally turned around. Give me a year, so.
I get you. I can't.
While we're waiting.
No, I don't think that's
It's online. I didn't even. There's some in the wall.
I'm just excited to get the volunteer part done.
One to Mr. Jim.
And then I said I could use my
She's with
board.
the foot elevator.
The storm looks good.
Okay, I don't use it.
Should have gave one, I got it yourself.
That's right, I remember all this now. You paid for the next to large size. Yes. Yes.
You're the press.
Well, good evening and welcome. I'll be very brief. My name is Greg Malou. Thank you all for attending and partaking in this important meeting. Nate Wilson is chair of the steering committee of the Architect Foundation project, and he'll be conducting this meeting. So again, just want to say thank you and welcome, and turn it over to Nate.
Thank you all for coming out. This is a nice crowd. So just a little bit of overview of what happened and how we got here. The Architects Foundation is a nationwide organization that helps small towns with their planning. And last year, in response to some community interest in doing a plan, we convened a group, the town convened a committee to create an application for a grant to have this plan created. So this plan did not cost us anything other than paying the expenses of all the people that came. And we had folks come from all over the country, really all the different corners of the country, and put this together. And so a comment or two about what this is. This is an idea about where the town might go from an infrastructure, from a housing, from a downtown development. It is not a prescription. So nothing that you will see tonight or hear is set in stone. They're just ideas. And so several folks have asked me, well, if they're just ideas, then what's the point? And the point is to be able to create a general direction, because hopefully there are things in this plan that we will want to implement and we will want to move forward with. And for those things, having it in our code and having voted and said, you know, we think this plan is important for us, helps us get funding. And that's really important in today's environment, because a lot of what this town does and a lot of what our community does is looks to the state in particular to help fund a lot of our initiatives. And the state in particular wants to know that we have a guiding vision and a plan of where we're going. So that's the reason we're here today and the reason we're talking about this. So I'm one of a committee, and several members of the committee are going to stand up and talk a little bit about several sections of the plan. And then when it's toward the end, one of our members is going to stand up and sort of facilitate a Q&A session so that the rest of the committee members can sort of listen to impact and feedback. And that's really what this is about, is to understand how the community feels about this idea. be nothing if we couldn't, if the technology were right. Let's see if I can make it bigger, but not so big that it drops off the screen again. All right, how the plan was put together. So the Communities by Design folks came by on 2 occasions. They came early on what was called a scoping mission, where they met with the city council, they met with the planning commission, they met with a few business owners, they took a tour of the town and sort of learned a little bit about what we were about. And from that initial meeting, they put together the larger group that came in April. And I know many of you were at that meeting in April. And so that larger group was really what did the lion's share of the report creation. And so that group then also, again, met with citizens. I think we had, it was more than 100 folks come out.
175.
Yeah, 175 folks come out to our public meeting and provide input. They also met with elected officials, not just from elected officials from Monteagle, but we went to Tracy City and talked to the Historical Society and met with some of those folks. They talked to business owners. James David down there, we went down and he treated us all to supper one night and live music at the smokehouse. And so we really tried to help them get a feel of the town. What they heard was this, and this illustration on the right is one that I like. It's used a lot now in these fact-finding missions, where all the 175 people who showed up to the community meeting had something that was important and on their mind. And so for everybody who wrote something down, the number of times that was written down is reflected in the size of the font here on the right. So the thing that was most important in Monteagle was, not surprisingly, Monteagle. And the thing that was the same size then is community. People were very interested in maintaining the small town, in keeping our mountain character. And then you can see from there, the fonts get smaller. Those were things that fewer and fewer people talked about, but were also still important. And so you can see there's people who wanted a skating rink there. So everything, a bowling alley. So lots of things made it. And so that's an interesting way to just sort of talk about our priorities. So the areas of focus that we want to talk about tonight are planning and zoning reform, infrastructure needs, downtown and tourist development, public space, and housing. So those were all identified as major needs in the community. And so to talk about planning and zoning, Ed Provost, who's the chair of our planning commission, is going to talk to us a little bit about what they told us. There you go, Ed. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Nate. Thank all of y'all for attending. We're in the early stages of this. The imagination was the easy part. Implementation will be a little more difficult. I wanted to talk about zoning particularly because it's going to be the leading tool that will be used to change this community. Zoning is one of the few things that we as a community still have any control over. From the federal government to the state government, the county government, most everything we do is controlled. But when it comes to zoning, they do leave that to the local communities. And because of that, we can shape our community. It may not affect all of us in the room, but over the years, it will make a huge difference. When we talk about zoning, about 3 years ago, we started looking at our codes and zoning and found out that we were in a mess. We've just had zoning ordinances that made no sense, didn't reflect what the community thought, or weren't even on the book. So over the last 3 years, it's been a massive effort to try to pull our zoning into some kind of usable tool to go along with our codes enforcement. We have succeeded in that. Every time we meet, we solve one and get 2 or 3 more to address. I give you things like food trucks. Nothing was on the books. Campgrounds, we're working on that hard. Convenience stores, where do we want them located? We don't want them everywhere. All these are zoning issues, and they just keep coming up every time we dig into an issue. And we hope to continue to address these over the years, and it's going to require the input of some younger people than the ones that are standing up here and talking now. Because it is the plan for the future. It's what will shape this community to be what we want it to be. When we look at, have you got the existing zoning map on here? I think you do.
I don't, it's right here.
If you look on the wall, we have an existing zoning map that we have talked about for years. It really needs addressing. And I think it's not in the scope of us to be able to do it. We need professional help to draw this zoning map and have it really reflect what our community is now and where we hope it goes in the future. When we talk about the state's involvement, they want a grand plan of things. They expect us to have a community-wide plan of what we want to do. We have not had this. Doesn't exist as far as we know. We thought it did at one time, did we? But nobody can find it, which is a common issue in these parts for some reason. But we need to look at where we're going and where we are now and address zoning so that we can steer this in the direction we want. As I said, there are very few things you control, but this is one of them. When Imagine Monteagle came and looked, I thought they came up with some really, really good ideas that just would not have risen out of the room in the crowd we had, and I appreciated their input. And when they look at this, one of the most important is the Civic Center. That's what they want to build this town around. They want to take where we are, the playground, the land next to it, the land behind it, and the land on the other side, and set it aside for civic centers, civic community involvement, right in the center of town. And then they want to go down Main Street and address Main Street, make it look like something we want it to look like, which is not empty lots, not huge parking areas. It's a community that has parking on the street, has sidewalks, has tables in front of restaurants between sidewalks and the stores, and has parking to the side and back. And these are all individual zoning issues that we'll have to address to make this happen, okay? It also takes some areas that we consider commercial and tries to turn it into residential. Main drag to Swanee, commercial 1, 2, main drag to Tracy, commercial 1 and 2, are shown as residential and low impact commercial. So that's a drastic change to the layout of our community on how we want to do this. As we go forward, if we adopt and we implement this, it will change this community drastically for the better. But it won't happen overnight. As I said, some of us won't see it. But it will affect our children and grandchildren. And I think that's really important for us to look to in the future. The zoning issues in particular that they raised was to update our zoning map, which I mentioned we need to do, and make sure that our zoning reflects what the community wants it to see, which it does not do right now exactly. To do that, we have to improve the regulatory framework. That's what we're working on. We're trying to get those ordinances up to date and representative of the things we need in this community. And we'll continue to do that as long as I'm involved with it. Change zoning districts to promote downtown commercial growth. We talked about that. We need to make the downtown our commercial growth area instead of having to extend out our boundaries between Tracy and Swanee. It needs to be focused in our main central business district. Add approval criteria for special exceptions. We've been struggling with this lately. We are putting special use exceptions with things. That opens up a can of worms for some people because it lets your officials decide yes and no on things not necessarily driven directly by the code. We have looked at this in campgrounds. We've looked at it several other, convenience stores, did we put that special use to? So that yes, there are issues where you do not necessarily have to change everything, but we want to make a specific change. This is special use. It's tricky ground to walk on, but it's also important ground for us to accomplish our mission. Updated subdivision regulations. We've not even looked at that really. We don't have much called subdivisions yet. We have community housing, residential housing, and one of our biggest issues is affordable housing in this community. We've not addressed that, and we will continue to address that. So as an introduction, I probably raised more questions than answered, because that's the way it works right now. If I can answer any questions quickly before we do the Q&A later, I'll be glad to. Any questions? That's easy. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
And so, I think it's important to point out is that the Imagine Monteagle plan lays out some guidelines and some directions, but it doesn't actually change our zoning. But what it does is it sets us up with the ability to be able to do that. So one of the next steps, we hope, will be to bring in another expert who can help us with this process, which will mean more community meetings, which we hope you guys and gals will all come be a part of, but can help us really draw down. So as you'll see this illustration in the plan, it gives some broad brush ideas, but it doesn't define what those things are. And that gives us the opportunity to define them as Monteagle. We're not asking the folks from Architect Foundation to give us all the answers. We're asking us to give them to give us a framework. And so I guess I'll bring up infrastructure, which was another big topic that is in that plan, and is a big topic that's on all our minds, particularly with our water in its current situation. And basically, they laid out several benchmarks of things that we need to do to get our water and sewer and infrastructure needs moving in the right direction. So again, these are not solutions per se, but these are going on record to say we've got to deal with I&I, we've got to deal with our water supply issues, so that we can then go to funders and say, Monteagle has identified this as a priority. So can you help us make this priority happen? So I won't dwell any more on that, but know that it's in there and know that it's important that we talk about it and keep talking about it. That note on the right, which I thought was was very interesting, that's actually a demographic breakdown of Monteagle. And I thought that was fascinating because one of the things they said is that Monteagle skews older than the general population. So one of the things we need to be able to do is make sure that we are doing development that can attract and retain young people, so that the young people from our community can stay here, we've got good jobs for them, but also so that we can make sure that we're an attractive place to live. And I thought that was a fascinating thing that I hadn't thought about otherwise. Downtown, Iva has been involved, was on our committee and has been involved in the downtown redevelopment ideas, and so I asked her if she would to go over sort of some of the things that she found from that plan.
Double duty.
Double duty.
We all do double duty in a small town, don't we?
And I've got 3 slides for you.
You got 3 slides?
Yeah, so those your other 2, that's a downtown profile,
Okay.
and then your third one is the downtown overview. So whenever you want me to change them, I'll change them.
Oh, okay, great. All right. How many people have been here a long time? How many people have been here, their family's been here 2 generations? How many people have been here 3 generations? How many people have been here 4 generations? How many people have been 5 generations? How many people have been 6 generations? How many people have been 7 generations? So that's what you're seeing here. Back in the day, we were the coolest of cool. We were started with John Moffat discovering this as a place where people needed to come, and he was a land developer. In the 1870, I think he plotted his Moffat Station. So Monteagle has evolved around the assembly, and it has a certain character of who we are. It's evolved and changed over the years. And as you can see, the downtown, how it was with the 2-story structures, with people living in their buildings and doing business in the bottom, with everything up to the street and street parking. It presented a very vibrant downtown. And then when the interstate came through, things changed. My grandparents were in business during that period of time, right after World War II. Which was the heady time, and then up to 1966 when Miss Iva died. And they were all concerned what would happen when the interstate went through, because Highway 41, anywhere you wanted to go, you were here. And we were the highest point between Chicago and Miami. And that was, something to be said. We had the kitschy, we had all the places to stay, we had all the restaurants, we had all the things that any visitor would want to do. And the community serviced those interests. I mean, that's just how it was. Over time, we lost our look, I would say, And for tourism, I'm in the tourism business now, so take aside the part of me being from Monteagle. In tourism, the most important thing that they're looking for in the state of Tennessee and for us is authenticity and to be the best of who we are. But who are we? Right? Who are we? We're a small mountain town, and we should look and feel like a small mountain town. And what they say is if you build a community that people want to live in, you create a community that people want to visit. And what that does is you create a vibrancy, and you have a place for our kids to have jobs and start businesses. But it takes a look, and it takes gussing up. We're the gateway, folks. I know we hear it a lot, but we are the gateway to now 3 state parks. 3 state parks that has 1 million+ visitors a year. Outdoor recreation is our game, and so is authentic small town America. People are escaping their big city life, and they want to come back to what is real and what is authentic and what they grew up in. And that's what they're flocking. I mean, they're flocking here. And they're wanting that same taste. And I know me as a town of Monteagle, as a person who loves this town, I want to live in Mayberry. Don't y'all? I mean, that's, you know, I want to live in Mayberry. I want to walk down the street and say hey to my neighbor, you know, and we want to create a more gussied up version of ourselves. We're working on a project right now with Monteagle Elementary School. They need a new sign. Well, that new sign should have mountain stone, shouldn't it?
Yep.
It should look like us. It should feel like us. None of that metal building stuff. Sorry, Dean. No. But you know, we need to start up in our game and being in a community that we absolutely love. The visitors will come. They're coming anyway, no matter what. Let's be that place that our forefathers loved and who we love. And so that's what our plan is.
The next slide illustrates that.
Okay, next slide. Different now, this is super cool. So how many people travel to small towns and other places? Bell Buckle, what's your favorite? Bell Buckle. You go cute, you go shopping, you park and you walk, right? Isn't that just what the whole term of it is? Well, if you look at this is super cool. You know how it's really ugly. It just really is. You need green space. You need trees. You need a place to walk and sit and eat. All these things are very doable. Remember when the 4-lane freeway went through town? We changed it because we, every 2 or 3 times a year, the interstate shuts down. And so we changed our entire traffic pattern to accommodate 2 or 3 times that the interstate. I'm sorry, that's not us. We don't need to adapt to the freeway shutting down. We need to adapt to our citizens, our folks enjoying lovely downtown Monteagle. So these are some of the suggestions. They're in your book. I think we're very excited, aren't we, Martha Ann, by what they came up with and ideas. These are just ways that we can very easily be that Main Street again that we used to be. So that's what some of the look is.
Yep.
And then, you know, what they're talking about, our historic district, I'm not going into the roundabout or the dog bone. I'm just not. That's just a story for another day. But downtown with the Mountain Goat Trail, and you start up here and you have the entire historic district with Harton Park, and it just creates a synergy. And if you can get like the next building up that Locals is going to be, bring it up front, have the parking in back, like our zoning aspects. It is so easy to create from this point the downtown of our dreams. And so I'm excited. You know, we've got some big plans. Is that my last one? But it's just a gussing up. It's every business owner, every home, just taking pride in who in their yard, in their front lawn, their sign. I don't want to live in a place where they make you. You know, I'm American. You know, I'm from freedom-loving America. But we should all step up to the plate and help our community be the best that can be. Drain's one of the best people who loves gussing up downtown.
Amen.
Yeah, can I get an amen on that? Drain does the
Amen.
best thing for the gussing up. We just need more of that. It makes everyone happy to live in a clean house. It just really does. So there's lots of opportunities here. I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited to be a part of the team. But for tourism, we've got to be that gateway when they get off of the interstate. We have to have signage. We have to have bathrooms. Right? Who knew bathrooms were so important? We need bathrooms, public nice bathrooms. We need visitor signs. We need outdoor outfitters. We just need more user friendliness for all of us. And I'm excited. I think that's
Thanks.
it.
All right, thanks. And so just a quick example while I have this slide up of how this plan can be important. Obviously, the private sector and the free market does the in-town development. So what we can do as a town is help them with market analysis, help point them in the right direction, help identify locations where we think it might be appropriate. But to Iva's example, so if something were to go into locals that was fronted on the street, as it would have been in the 1950s, and has parking to the rear, well, there might be a role for the town to play to fix that road back there, right? And having a plan like this helps us go to places like the Appalachian Regional Commission and say, hey, we've got people interested in investing in our town, and we need help fixing this road. And using this plan to do that is a perfect example of what something like this can do. Again, it doesn't fix the problems itself, but it gives us some tools to work with. So, Martha Ann, did you want to? Martha's chairs our beautification committee and tree board committee, and she wanted to talk to us a little bit about some of the public space and beautification aspects that they put in the plan.
Yeah, as he said, I chair beautification, and let me tell you how that started. The mayor asked me to get hanging baskets along Main Street, and it grew from there. It started with the hanging baskets, and first he mentioned Doreen. Doreen and Sheila Huddleston together decorated along Main Street, and I think we need to give them a round of applause. It really perks you up, doesn't it, to drive down the street and see all those happy faces on the on the pumpkins and stuff. Then we took on Christmas celebrations, Christmas lights. The mayor asked us to do that, so I added more to the committee. And then Nate asked us to be a tree board, and so now we're beautification and tree board, and that requires more people in order to get things done. And it also opened the floodgates of brainstorming. As Ida was saying, we have more, there's so much on this report that gets me excited of the things that we could do. Public art, maybe down Main Street, murals. How about angel wings, or instead of angel wings, we have eagle's wings on the side of that building that people can stand in front of, and they're an eagle. You've seen the angels that people do. That would be easy for us to do. And the kids in the elementary school could help paint the wings. I've mentioned the new sign for Monteagle Elementary School. We need a sign ordinance maybe that requires new businesses to include the stone in their signs so that every business has the stone. How about a community art day where we have children and adults making sculptures out of recycled materials. And we might end up with some that could be public art. The group here
Tell me when you want me to change slides.
suggested right there that we make that a park across from Harton Park. It's where that metal is up there. There used to be two buildings, two-story, beautiful old buildings. And there's still some of the stone down there. Make that into a park so that we've got a park on both sides of the street. I think that could be easily done. I mean, we could just have a day to go out there and make it a park. Problem is, the city doesn't own the property. And the city doesn't own, I don't know whether you know this, but the city doesn't own Harton Park. That is privately owned, and they let us use it. But the back of the property is dangerous. And someday we're gonna have somebody fall and get hurt, and we're gonna be sued. So we need to think about ownership of property, and maybe this plan would help us get funds to purchase property that we could then control. We need to act like, as Ira said, the gateway to the plateau. We've got 3 state parks. That's amazing. And we are where they get off here and go to those parks. So we could be the place where they get all of their food, their backpacks, I mean, everything. But we've got to bring people here from business. There's a lot that we can do that wouldn't cost a lot. And that's one of the things that I talked with the mayor of Helper, Utah. She said, there's so much you can do to get people interested. They did little things that brought artists in who bought property and opened places along their main street. I mean, there are things we could do to interest others to come. Our committee has come up with several committees that need to be formed. We need people to be a tree board, just a separate tree board.
You want me to move to that slide?
Sure. We've got beautification, and we're looking at public art, landscaping, Christmas, special events. We need at least 4 big special events. We've got one, the Mountain Market here, the end of July. But we need at least 3 more to bring people back on a regular basis. We need people to work on our website. Don't know if you've been to it lately, but it doesn't have pictures of us. It has drawings. We need people who know that kind of stuff. Economic development, we need resolutions and ordinances. We need people who are good at grant writing and people who are interested in tourism. So think about what you might be interested in doing, and I've got paper up here. You can sign up. Or if there's something in what we've been talking about tonight that you think, oh, I'd like to work on that, write that down on the sheet. Say, I want to work on this.
Thank you. And so the last one I put up here is housing, and I'll talk about that because it's important to me. So as someone who has 3 children that were born and raised in Monteagle, I think it's critically important that we think about housing and think about how we can make sure that we maintain affordable housing stock. And like with a lot of these answers, we're not talking about a government answer, we're talking about the government making easier for private investors to come in. So I know there are several recommendations in here, many of which fall under ed and zoning. They're just changes to the zoning ordinance that can encourage residential development. But I think they're important. Many of you who follow the day-to-day at City Hall know that I was pretty loud and proud in favor of auxiliary dwelling units as a way for community members to be able to build out density for their family and for their friends. That's just one example. They have several examples that they put in here. And so, again, this is not the solution. This is simply giving us a palette from which to work on and to help us go out and find funding and attract investors. So I just, again, want to say why it's important. So, in conclusion, this is an overview that gives us options, not prescriptions, and I can't say that enough. This is, by adopting this, we are not adopting a new zoning map or zoning ordinance. We are simply saying that we think this is a good direction for Monteagle to go in, and then the hard work comes after that. So I'll go ahead and let y'all know that there were several funders who funded the Architects Foundation to come here, and they're interested in helping us with our zoning ordinance. And so I've got a call with them actually tomorrow to talk about what that might look like, and so to get these next steps rolling. But it's a long process. So this is not a one and done and now we're over with. All these are very difficult problems that took us a long time to get where we are, and they're going to take us a long time to fix. So I just want to make that clear. I talked about funding options and needed direction. So now I'll open it up to questions. And so if you're on the committee, can I ask you to grab your chair and come up so that the community can see who we are and be able to all answer questions together? Scott Parrish, who's on our committee, has offered to be the MC for the Q&A session. But just to give you an idea of who we all are on the committee. I sprung that on y'all. Here, I'll bring some chairs up.
Pull your chair over.
I'm going to turn the lights on too.
Can you see?
I'm blocking you.
Better sit back here where the normal people ain't going.
Nate, I'm going to do this from the hallway. That works for me right here. Okay, all in favor, say aye. No, seriously, this whole thing has really been built around input from the community. So here's yet one more opportunity to get questions answered or just to make comments, either in favor of or suggestions otherwise, so that the steering committee can take that under consideration. Blaine?
Would you let everybody introduce themselves and a very short how they wound up there, please?
Start with you, Jim.
Oh, great.
You need to think about that.
I'm still Jim Harmon. Moved to Swanee in '96, moved to Charlotte in '99, and came back in 2002 and bought the Monteagle Inn Retreat Center and let that run me for 18. So lots of changes in Monteagle, many positive, some not so positive. I think it has a great future. I think where we are is a good start, and we've got somewhat of a roadmap, and I think we need to utilize that as much as we can and get more people involved and more young people involved.
And Jim was nominated by the South Cumberland Chamber of Commerce to be on the committee. That's how he landed on the committee.
My name's Dean Lay. I've been here all my adult life, most of my baby life. And I asked the mayor to put me on the committee just to learn and be a part of it. And just to really see how the process was. And I think it was very professional. Gave some good options, and I think it's very important that in the interim, the planning commission has stalled some things, saying we're waiting on the AIA study thing to give us a mission statement and all that. Well, I don't agree with that. I think you cannot put the brakes on Monteagle while this plan is being put together, and it's a 5 or 10 year plan. And I think we've got to continue to deal with people that want to develop their property and under the guidelines we have. And if you have a set of guidelines and if I or anyone else meet those guidelines, and your staff planner says they recommend approval, they shouldn't be turned down. You know, they should pass it or change the rules. And so that's getting away from this, but this is a very professional plan, I think, and has a lot of great ideas and potential for great success.
My name is Ed Provo. My family has been in the assembly since 1905. My father, when he retired, moved up here for the rest of his life, and he seemed to be happy. So when I retired, Kathy and I moved up here to make this our home, and I wanted to get involved in this community and help it. Now, I'm going to tell you about the elephant in the room and rain on your parade a little bit here. We have these great growth ideas. We've got businesses coming to town, but we can't give them water and we can't treat their sewer. All right? You cannot grow without infrastructure. Infrastructure comes first. All right? We have got to address water and sewer and not keep promising motel developers and subdivision developers that we have the capacity to handle them when we don't really know. Thank you.
So I'm Eric Zen, and I live in Monteagle. This is probably my 5th year. And I was just interested in the community and watching it grow and seeing how I could be a part of that. And I live on Main Street, so it's important to me that Main Street be viable and beautiful and be a place that people want to come. So that's why I'm on the committee. And I was a group of people, I guess, Nate was looking for people, and I raised my hand and thought I was good enough to be on the committee, so that's what I did.
Steve Williams, I'm the new executive director at the Assembly. I'm the new guy in the group. I've lived here for all of 6 months, but I've been coming to the mountain for 40 years. So I've, have some familiarity, somewhat of a baseline. And Nate was kind enough to give me a seat at the table, figure out where the Assembly fits into this. And we're looking forward to being a good partner, just to see how this unfolds and where we can help.
I'm Ivan Michelle Russell, and I live in my grandparents' place here in Monteagle. I'm 7th generation Grundy County, and I just want to live in Mayberry, and I'm just thrilled to be here. And my grandmother was mayor here at one time. The first one.
I'm Martha Ann Pilcher. You heard a lot about me, but I've been coming up here for 49 years. I got married up here 48 years ago, and my husband and I moved here 6 years ago, and we love it and want it to be the best it can be.
I'm Jessica Favaloro. My husband and I moved here 12 years ago. We're from New Orleans originally, and we moved here primarily because we wanted to live in Mayberry too. We spent our honeymoon here after we got married. We live out on Laurel Lake Drive.
So my name's Ty Burnett. I'm the manager at Cliff Tops. I've been here for about 20 years, but I grew up next door in Marion County, rural Marion County, very rural Marion County. And I quite honestly don't know how I ended up on this committee. I don't know if I was nominated or I just showed up at the wrong place at the wrong time. What happened?
At the wrong time, at the right time.
And I hear some of the comments about, we've got to provide infrastructure, we've got to grow, and we want to be in Mayberry. And it seems to me that we need to get our priorities straight here. What are we trying to do? I'm I'm fine with whichever direction we want to go. We need to get that kind of identified. Do we want to grow? Do we want to have more hotels? Or do we want to be Mayberry and want to be Banbury with hotels? Do we want to define how much water we have and then grow to that extent? Or do we want to find more water? You know, obviously, we don't have enough water right now. So I propose that. I also hear a lot about what we want to do, but we keep saying, we're going to write a grant. We're going to basically, we're saying we want to do all these things, but we want to ask somebody else for the money. I think maybe we ought to figure out a way, you know, it'd be really neat if we paid for some of it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth.
Then you need hotels. Then you need hotels.
I think maybe some of us pay for some of it.
Don't need more hotels up here, that's true.
Put cliff tops
What's that?
I said, put cliff tops in the city limits and let's have.
I don't have that power, man. So that's a nice thought, but I don't have that power, so.
Well, that's a good thought.
Thank you. My name is Greg Maloof. You probably all know me. I'm the mayor. I'm behind this project. I think it's important that we have what I've always said, intelligent growth, knowing what we can and cannot do and where, and to put things in what we want Monteagle to be. We're imagining Monteagle. So I do want to thank Nate and the steering committee and those that have worked on this over the years. And it just didn't happen. There's a lot of coordination, a lot of emails, a lot of planning and more planning, I think Nate can attest to. So I just wanted to thank all of you for your contribution to this project. So thank you.
And then the final answer to your question, and I'm not sure if these people know this, but everybody on this committee, when the American Institute of Architects came out, they said we would like to, in your application, for you to have letters of support from the community. And so I put out, I think in a city council meeting, and I think I also put out via email, simply asking for people to write letters of support. So everybody in this committee sent me a letter of support. That was one of my litmus tests. Now, a lot more people sent me letters of support, and so we weren't able to accommodate everybody's request, but everybody here took the initiative to send me a letter and telling us why they thought this process was important. So
that was my mistake.
There was your mistake.
Whatever time.
And I think we all know Nate, but I don't know if you all know how hard he worked to really get this ball rolling. He did the paperwork, the lobbying with AIA to get them to come down and consider this project. And they do one a year?
I think they do 5 or 6.
5 or 6 a year out of the whole nation.
Yeah.
And Nate, I know, went through a lot of trouble and spent a lot of time to get them here. And it was a great investment of your time, Nate.
Well, and thank you, Nate.
Not that we're paying you.
Here, here.
I'm Scott Parrish. My wife Linda and I came up here looking for work about 15 years ago. And we stayed and built a house. On some maps is in Monteagle, some maps is in Crystal City. So we're a citizen of the community. And so we not only plan to live here, we're going to be buried here, so I want to make sure it looks good. And I think I got on it because for the better part of 3 mayoral terms, I screamed and hollered that, you know, we need to plan what we want the community to be, just not let what the zoning in place is going to make the community what. So that's, you know, I wanted the towns to get out in front of those issues so that we can decide what kind of businesses we want to attract and what kind of businesses do we think we have enough of or don't want. And so this was very exciting when I heard about it, and I wrote Nate a letter, and I maybe even lobbied him, and that's how I got here. So, enough of that. Your questions. Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking around, and I don't see a lot of business owners here. And I'm wondering, do you have a plan to pull business owners into this? Because we have to have your support. I'm thinking you just can't go up to Wonder Brew, I'm just going to use them for an example, and say, you have this gravel parking lot that doesn't look so great, and we want people to park behind you. Is there some way to pull them in and say, we can work with you on a grant, or there's this money here that we can pull in to spivvy up a parking lot for you? I mean, is there a plan out there?
Well, maybe I can answer that. Just throw a flag. We have worked very hard through this whole process to get input and to make businesses aware of what the opportunities are going to be. And when the group from AIA came in, we had a whole dedicated meeting of just business owners so that they could put their input in. So we've done special mailings, we've solicited a lot of information from those business owners. I think right now there's not a specific plan on how we're going to work with the existing business owners to kind of bring them into the fold. Am I correct on that, Nate?
Well, as part of the main meeting, for those of you who came to the big meeting outside, there was a meeting earlier in the day that was just for business owners, and I think we had maybe 20 plus folks there. It was a full room to hear their questions and get their input. So they were all invited tonight, and I will say that Dean asked to be on the committee, and that works too. And Dean also wrote a letter, but Dean and Eric are both downtown business owners, and so that was one of the reasons that they both landed on the committee, is that we wanted some people to volunteer. And I reached out to some other business owners and asked them, and got some yeses and got some nos. Mostly didn't get letters of support, and I felt like that was an important litmus test for putting in the effort to be a part of this process. So yes, they are going to be critical to make it successful.
And I would suspect as this cake gets baked that when there's opportunities to get grants from the state for improvements around town, we can work with those individual business owners to get their parking lot moved or relocated to fit the plan. But we need the plan. We need the overall plan first. Good. Jim?
Yeah, I want to move over here. I don't want to talk to you back. I've got to use notes first. There's one attorney in town who probably, well, he has publicly stated that I'm not qualified as a structural engineer to make these comments, but I'm going to do it anyhow. I'm a design professional, and I have read the report in detail, actually twice. And I strongly recommend to the town council that they adopt the Imagine Monteagle report as a foundation document for the development of the master plan for Monteagle. This report is a very professional report. It was done by a team of highly qualified architects who are specialized in the development of rural community products. The report does in no way jeopardize the autonomy of the officials in Monteagle to develop a master plan or make decisions related to it. I want to congratulate you, Nate, for bringing this group together and getting this preliminary report. It's very valuable to you. It serves as an opening mechanism for developing your public doctrine, for enticing developers to come into Monteagle because they know work is being done to develop a product such as this. And it allows the public a forum to receive comments as to what they want to input into the master plan for the town. Very important that the citizens of the town go along with what the leaders up here are conjuring. Okay, now, I won't go into too much detail, but I want to tell you a couple of reasons why I think this development plan was so good. First of all, they did pay attention to what the citizens were saying and what the leaders of the citizens were saying as to what should be developed in the town. They have experience in development, so they know what developers are looking for in a master plan, and that's important. If you want to get money, you've got developers. Some of the things that they noted is that we're a somewhat antiquated town. This can be overcome, but it's going to take some serious revisions in the thinking of the leadership of Monteagle. Serious revisions in the thinking of what we expect to have on the streets coming off the interstate and coming through town. I don't want to get into the lecture mode, so that's the only comments I'm going to make tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, sir.
I would, as probably the youngest person in this group, my name is Jesse Goodman, and I own some land here in Monteagle, and I'm an aspiring developer. And what I would say to everyone is, growth is coming here, whether you like it or not. What this plan is doing and what I support is we're laying out how we want that growth to come. So I would champion this document and say, hey, Imagine Monteagle is the plan moving forward. I don't live here. I've invested many time, days, hours. I went to high school in Grundy County, so I'm a native to this area. And I would like to see something respectable and nice come out of Monteagle, and I believe this achieves that. And that being said, you need a plan to attract people to come into this town and to put their money in, and this does that. So just like to support that, so thank you guys.
Got a young flag bearer here. Well, and I think we've heard from other developers in that business meeting that they very much desire having a formal plan and know what's expected. You're happy to put a mountain stone sign out front if it's in the code. They don't want to do it if it's not. So the more that we can specify what we want the town to look like and how we want it to grow, developers that we've met with seem to be very excited about having that opportunity. And also, as Ed mentioned, get everything straightened out on the codes and the zoning so they know what to expect. Anybody else? Linda.
Since Scott and I have been here, I've had a chance to be involved in several volunteer opportunities. I've been on the board at the park, the Friends Board, and I've chaired the Grundy County Library system. Ty has been with me on many of those occasions. For me, it was a real eye-opener to see the dynamics between the state, the county, and the towns of Monteagle and how they work, or maybe not, together. It's interesting when you think about, surely we're the gateway to the plateau, but what would Colmar have to say about that? And how do we do that in a respectful way that helps these towns who have a history of being really independent and doing their own thing and having their own personality? What I've heard across the plateau is that we're viewed as kind of the business center of the plateau. That's a neat step to launch off on if we do that right. I mean, we're the gateway, and as Ida Michelle was saying, that it's all about outdoor tourism, except we don't have a park in Monteagle. It's everywhere. It's everywhere else around us. We have the visitor center down the road. How do we make that work so that we're good partners? And I really feel like we have an opportunity to lift the whole plateau up with what Monteagle is doing. I don't hear that addressed in the plan at all. How, what we do for that kind of collaboration. So I just wondered, is that a maybe later kind of thing? Are we going to run into a barricade with our plans as we interact with others.
Yeah, Martha,
I
you
think
want to tackle
a
that?
lot of that comes through the tourism, because when people come to the mountain, they don't care whether we're Monteagle, Sewanee, Colmont, Altamont. They came to be on the mountain. They don't care whether it's Marion County, Grundy County. They just came up here. So tourism is where we work together and promote everything. So like we would have maps that would have all of the towns on it and all of the places to go visit on it here in Monteagle, to show people where they can go and support the others.
There's 9 communities in the Tennessee South Cumberland region,
Right.
and each of them are a historic town.
Right.
And we are just doing our part to gussy up. Tracy City has already moved forward with downtown walking, and they're doing their own redesigns. Altamont's doing their own redesigns. Everybody, Palmer is doing their redesign. So everybody is lifting themselves up. We have to do that as well.
Yeah, and if I can add just a little bit to that, one of the dangers that we face is because we're right on the interstate and we have these 2 interstate exits, that if we're the business center, the town can just be subsumed by the interstate.
Right.
And I don't think anybody wants to be an interstate exit or wants Monteagle to be an interstate exit. But that's the danger, is that if we don't proactively think about what we do want to be, we'll end up being where everybody gets off to go to the cute town of Tracy City or the cute town of Colmont. And that's one of my main impetuses behind doing this.
Scott, I've got, I think it's great that it's a great plan. It's fresh ideas. I'm all about that. The local citizens don't know the infrastructure and the ordinances. They don't care about that, but they want to see action. And it's going to take the city stepping up and gussying up City Hall, gussying up the community center, the fire hall, the police station. Once they see, even painting crosswalks across the highway, but you've got to show that you're doing something and not just sitting in a room talking about it. Because they don't care about that. They want to see you actually out there doing something. And if the city's not going to start doing it, why would a business owner start doing it?
I do want to say that I think something that I think has been tremendously important has been the painting of the water towers and the putting of Monteagle. I mean, that has served, I think, as a focal point for people, and they do see that there's something actually happening.
And the
I mean,
Lego
I
building.
watched that go by and that happen, and I just got more proud about being in the city.
Yeah, the Lego building, it's just something new. That's what I call your building, I'm sorry. The Lego building.
The Lego building.
Yeah, but it's fresh, it's clean, and that's what,
The yard's a
that's
little
what
messed
people
up, and I'll work
see.
on that.
But that's what people see, and you've got to do action. While you guys are sitting up here worrying about infrastructure and ordinances, you've got to be doing something at the same time, or nobody's going to be interested in it.
Well, that's true, Doreen, and I think, this is just as we're inching closer on this process and getting community input and support, then the next steps will be for the town council to codify this. And this will be the plan. And then it's up to somebody
Yeah,
to
it's just got to be implemented.
to grab it and start the implementation. And you're right, the things that you can do first that make an impact are going to generate support. But they have to be things that are going to be consistent. You can't just go out like right now and put up a new sign at Monteagle Elementary. Then once we get it all decided, codified, decided that's not the kind of sign we want there. So it needs there's a lot of moving parts here. I saw too, Linda.
That's what Doreen and your group have done in just decorating Main Street, and what Martha Ann is talking about with trees and all that. Those are the kind of quick things that can be happening simultaneously with the infrastructure. So some people did the immediate result, and some people, understand understand the infrastructure. It's got to be both, and enough energy from one to feed the other.
Yes, sir. Back here.
I just want to thank you all and say I just think it's awesome. I think
It feels like something Monteagle has been missing and needing for a long time, and I know it's been a tremendous amount of work to get here, and I know the work of implementation is going to be even harder and probably even uglier at times. But stay the course. It's awesome. I also want to say, having been a resident of two cities, larger towns, who've gone through a similar process, one more successful than the other in terms of their goals. From the outside looking in, it appeared to me one of the biggest differences in being successful was, well, the two towns, cities, are Chattanooga and Augusta, Georgia. So I know we're not trying to be Chattanooga, but what Chattanooga did was focus first. They picked early priorities. What Augusta did was let the market and independent people, and so they have sort of a shotgun approach with desolation in between these little oases of development. Does that make sense? So I love that what it looks like is there's a real emphasis and focus and priority for that Main Street section as a place that can really create the visibility and build out from there. And I support that, and if that's not the case, I hope you'll think about, while you're working on all these tendrils, pick some big wins early to build around, because it's what Augusta didn't do, and they're still struggling.
Good point, thank you. Anybody else?
I would just say one thing. I don't think it'll take but a year, or maybe 18 months to develop the full master plan for this town, with the talent you got on the planning commission here. But in the interim, I think planning commission has the right to implement certain portions of the draft of that plan for guidance in the development of the town henceforth.
I think that's critical. The master plan idea, anytime you talk to state officials, they want to know about your master plan. If you don't have a master plan, they're not going to pay any attention to you. You've got to have goals established, and I agree with you there, Mr. Warren. I think that's very critical.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, everyone, for coming. Another great session. A lot of good input. Appreciate it.
Oh, I need to thank Lucy Keeble, because she spearheaded several folks who donated the money to have these documents today printed. So the town had allocated $750 toward printing costs, and Lucy was able to step up and find that money in the community, which means, as we talked about in our workshop, we can take that $750 and allocate it elsewhere.
And it turns out to be a lot more than 750.